Hi all, Kevin Barry from Right% here, as usual. And in today's presentation, we're going to talk about how to make the best use of B2B ads data. So data is a very common word, sometimes a scary word, but this presentation should be pretty straightforward. Marketing data is a fire hose, and B2B ads data is no different. I'm, of course, focusing on the B2B ads portion because that's what I do. I'm a hammer in search of a nail. The best data to focus on is one, actionable, so you can actually use it to make decisions, and two, connected to revenue. This sounds like it should be obvious, but it's just a best practice that informs how we think about the rest of this presentation, which gets into details. First, and to understand data, you have to understand where it comes from. And there are two important data sources when analyzing ads. There's the ad platform layer, and there's the CRM and database layer. So the ad platform is like, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, actually inside the UI or via API. And then there's your internal data. So that could be Salesforce, it could be HubSpot, or it could be, an internal database that you have to pull data from using SQL or some other language. These are the two ways to think about data, the two locations where they live. There may be others, but these are the core ones when looking at analyzing ads. The ad platform layer, as I mentioned, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, search, the UIs, includes a whole bunch of metrics, right? Like there's literally you can export a column with a spreadsheet with hundreds of columns of different pieces of data the platforms can give you. The most common thing people look at is spend. Obviously, you have to know how much of your company's valuable money is being put through the platforms. Top level metrics like clicks and impressions and cost per each, and conversions. So these are events created by the advertiser, that's you, to signal important visitor activity in the funnel. I want to get into what's important and what's not important from those basic exports. The first thing is that top level metrics are not important, and they're not important because they're misleading. So in old school marketing, it was very important to track metrics like cost per thousand impressions or cost per click to make micro adjustments to campaigns. That's because the platform targeting algorithms were not very good. You have to do a lot of manual adjustment as a media buyer. In modern direct response marketing, you should almost always ignore these metrics. The reason for that is you can have an ad with super high CPMs and super high CPCs and have amazing cost per conversion. And the reason for that is sometimes the audience that's most likely to convert for you is one of the more expensive ones to reach on Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok or wherever you are, because the ad platforms are live auctions between advertisers competing. On average, advertisers compete more for leads that are more likely to be valuable. Facebook and all these other platforms pick up on that. And so the cost may be higher on a cost per impression or cost per click basis, but generally they'll convert the best down funnel anyway. So I totally recommend entirely cutting clicks, cost per click from your normal reporting. It'll mislead more than it helps. And you can always dig into it in the platform later if you need to look into a conversion issue or something along those lines, where it's more useful to have more granular information. Now, conversion events, on the other hand, are the most important things that the ad UI gives you after spend. They're key for two reasons. So one, they help humans make good decisions. Humans meaning you and me and whoever's managing your account. And they also train the AI to find the right kind of clickers to generate revenue for your business. So, for instance, an example here is OnDeck. So OnDeck's a small business lender that I used to work for. You could optimize, you could make a conversion event at all sorts of points in the funnel. So you could do it when a business owner first signs up and says, hey, I'm interested in financing. Or you could do it later on after they upload bank statements or something to prove they're a real business. And the conversion event, as you can imagine, gets more and more valuable the farther it is down the funnel, both because it's easier for us to see, this campaign is generating a lot of leads, but not very many qualified ones, versus this campaign. That's the manual human part. And the AI part is that you can train the ad platforms to find more and more of those qualified users. So instead of any business owner who wants money, ones that have over $1 million a year in revenue, if you send the right signals to the platforms, they can figure that out on their end with their black box algorithm. So that's why conversion events are so important and clicks and impressions are not. from your main conversion event. So again, this is the thing you're optimizing on, training both your team and the algorithm. There's a few things you need those conversion events to have. One is that it has to correlate to down funnel revenue. So for instance, is a normal lead that comes in on your website, does it correlate well to revenue? Probably not, because most leads are low quality. So you'd want a signal that is more like lead and they said they have 100 employees, or lead and they logged in and watched the demo. Something along those lines that that really focuses your signal on stuff that is a leading indicator of future revenue. You want an event that happens within 1 day of click. So again, we're talking about ads here. Ads work better with real-time information. So you don't want to try to optimize on something that happens 90 days later. You want to optimize on something that happens on day one, which is why, again, we're looking for leading indicators and not actual revenue. You have to get 30 to 50 of these conversion events per week per ad set. So if you only get 5 conversions a week, then you have to go up funnel and have something less qualified. And that's, something you have to figure out, especially when you start advertising, is, where is that balance of what you optimize towards? And this depends on budget. It depends on the cost per conversion. It depends on how effective your campaigns in general are. And finding that balance is key to any B2B ad account. For click or view-based attribution, generally, you should use click only as a rule, especially if you're a large company, because the higher percentage of conversions that your website normally gets without ads touching it at all, the more one-day view will become useless because it's including too many people who may not even have registered your ad but are converting anyway. Small companies can consider 7-day click and 1-day view because it's less likely that there are coincidental viewers who are seeing that ad and converting even though they didn't actually register it. Especially because smaller companies need as many conversion events as they can get so the algorithm can optimize. That said, the more you rely on view through attribution, the less reliable Facebook's targeting algorithm is. So if you're getting, I've seen a client where, we audited and they were getting 80% of their conversions from the 1-day view portion instead of 7-day click. That's, the algorithm can't learn anything at that point. It's not getting true signals. So in summary, for the ad platform layer, the important data is spend and conversion events. All those other columns you don't need to look at on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis. It's good to establish one or more conversion events as leading indicators of revenue, not just good, but vital. It's better to rely on click-based attribution for conversions. All right, next we'll get into the CRM layer. So the next source of data is the CRM database layer. This is, as I mentioned, it's your Salesforce instant, your HubSpot, or your internal database, whatever your various sources of truth are in your org. The key data to track here is a little different for sales-driven or sales-led growth companies versus self-serve or PLG companies, product-led growth. So for sales-driven companies, the most important data is pipeline. It's leads to opportunities to close won customers. For self-serve, it's accounts created, then engaging with the product, and then finally paying for the product. And then above that, it's paying for the more expensive licenses. True for both of these. For this, it would be value of deal size as well. The data you need to associate with each lead is stuff that comes from the ad side of the platform that we just talked about in part 1. So every lead or sign up that you have in Salesforce and HubSpot, you should be able to see at each layer of the pipeline, whether lead, op, or closed won, what ads they clicked, ad sets, campaigns, and form download source. Those are the 4 key things that let you make decision from advertising. The most important way to measure performance from ad campaigns is to track how far those leads go. Makes sense, right? Like if a campaign is working, then more leads become opportunities, more become closed ones, and more become revenue. So the best way to compare campaigns, if you have campaigns A, B, and C, are by the various costs per pipeline. And it's a great quality measure. It does have 2 downsides, though. It can take time to get enough down funnel conversion data. Maybe opportunities and closed ones take months at your company. And then for self-serve businesses, a lot of leads will never become customers, which can give you misleading signals. So for example, if we take a look at this data, this demonstrates another issue with B2B ads. This is pretty common. Campaign A has a lot of leads, but a lower leads opportunity conversion rate. Campaign B is in between, and campaign C has the highest conversion rate, but the highest cost per lead as well. How do you know which of these campaigns are better than the others? We actually don't. There's not enough data here, and this is really, really common in B2B. Again, that lowered amount, sort of point one here, down funnel conversion data can be pretty rare. So the way to solve that is something I touched on in the other form section on conversion events. You need to collect more information up front on things that correlate to lead quality, that correlate to future revenue, that are leading indicators of future revenue. So how many employees do they have? What's their budget? What's their title? This is all stuff you can collect and incorporate into your pipeline to give you another layer in between lead and op of qualified lead. And that ends up being sort of the core metric that you look at on your, on a weekly basis when looking at ad campaign performance. And then on a monthly or quarterly basis, you can look at ops and closed ones when comparing campaigns to each other. Time to vintage is also important. Vintage is a new word for a lot of people, but it comes from wine. Like, the 1983 vintage of wine has been aging. It's the same thing with this. Another way of looking at it is cohorts. And it's 100% key to understanding your funnel. So what you need to know is if you have a time period, the week of January 1 to 14, the opportunities and closed ones you're reporting should be from leads created in that time period, not leads closed in that time period, which could have come from any time. Otherwise, you're not actually seeing performance of your ad campaigns. You're seeing performance of past ad campaigns, and everything's going to get muddied. You need to have a cohortized view of down funnel data. People often ask about first, last, or multi-touch attribution. Ideally, you want your internal system to track all touches so you can manually slice and dice the data. So if you're looking at people from Facebook, you can see, 10, if you use first touch, you have 10, last touch is 7, 16 with any touch. And then when you can manually look at it, you can make better decisions on how to set your defaults. In general, I like defaults set to first click over last click because I think it's much more marginal value to your business to get somebody's first click rather than their last. And I also think certain channels shouldn't be counted because they can't help you make decisions. So organic, direct, those shouldn't never be assigned into a attribution system because it doesn't help anybody to know that. You should always, or brand clicks, stuff like that. That's not actually useful. So what you want is to make your system ignore that. So it looks at true areas where you actually can affect budgets. You can affect your Facebook budget. You can affect your non-brand search budget. You can send more emails, etc. So those are all things that are worth tracking. Multi-channel attribution tools, I find don't work that well in B2B because they use modeling and because B2B companies rarely have enough data. If you're some huge company, you can probably make it work. But I've worked with a lot of, billion-dollar B2B companies that just had nowhere near the volume of data needed to have accurate multi-channel attribution. So in summary, for the CRM and database layer, to best understand B2B ads, you need to track how leads move down your funnel, track leading indicators of lead value, and track the time it takes for prospects to move from one funnel stage to another on average. And our last part, using and analyzing the B2B ads data from both sources that we just went over, the ads and the internal. So first note is we don't recommend dashboards, especially not when you're starting out, for 4 reasons. One is that campaign performance indicators, those conversion events, they change all the time at the start. 2 is you don't know how to vintage things yet. You don't know how, for instance, Facebook leads, how long it takes them to convert, how the sales team interacts with them. Without down funnel events populating that in a reliable way, opportunities and closed ones, a dashboard that focuses on up funnel events like leads or, God forbid, clicks will cause your team and especially senior management to focus on the wrong things as those numbers change. And lastly, when you're just starting out, your campaign structure and naming conventions will change all the time, which will also break your dashboards. So in general, don't start with dashboards. Start instead with weekly manual updates and talking about what's happening in the campaigns, and then transition into a spreadsheet, which we'll get into. What should be included when looking at your data on a weekly basis? This goes back to principle number 1 of B2B ads data. It should be actionable. So spend, conversions, and cost per different type of conversion by each campaign is very actionable. If you have campaigns A, B, and C, this one's doing better than the other, you can readjust budget. Commentary that comes from looking at the current data and deciding what next steps should be. So that's where expertise comes in, but you need this most reliable data in order to come up with commentary. And lastly, a very manual conversation on what the quality of current signups and leads look like. So you have to constantly basically be checking in on your qualified leads, your conversions you think should lead to more highly qualified prospects for the sales team to close. The only way to do that at the start is really manually looking at the leads, talking to the sales team, and figuring that all out. So as your account becomes more mature, the ideal way to look at performance overall on the ad account, I find, is a simple table like this. So the spend is obvious, leads is obvious. Qualified leads is what we talked about earlier, that event that correlates to future revenue, the most important event when looking at ad accounts on a weekly basis. You can see here that in this example, performance is increasing week over week because the cost per qualified lead is going down. Or, it may not be stat sake, but it's promising at least. This close one data is being vintaged. So, a month from now, it may say 5 close ones. But there's no way to know at this time. That's used for when looking back at history. So in summary, when using B2B ads data, analyze the top and bottom of the funnel data together on a weekly basis. That's your leads, your qualified leads, and your close ones. Develop a weekly tracker that tracks those important metrics, but not a dashboard. Then on a monthly, quarterly basis, you can graph those broad trends to get an instant feel for account progress. And that's your dashboard once you've figured everything else you need to make a mature ad account. It's for long-term decision-making, while the weekly, useful data is best found here. So that's it. I hope this has been helpful as you figure out how to use your own B2B ads data. This is Kevin Barry from Right%. Have a good one.